Hi guys, I'm Rob, this is Pixel Lab, where the Nintendo collecting journey continues. So this week I was very fortunate enough to find an old Nintendo Entertainment System. This also happens to be the Mattel version, also the PAL version as well. This is the one that got released here in Australia as well as Europe in 1985. I actually did own one when I was a child. This was actually my first introduction to Nintendo as far as I'm concerned. I got one of these when I was 8 years old. But then when I was in my teenage years and I got my Nintendo 64, I got rid of this one. I think I gave it either to my cousin or I sold it. I'm not too sure, but it disappeared. So I've been searching around everywhere to find one of these in actually relatively good condition and working condition. I do know that this works for a fact because I did test it before actually buying it. I did find this at Cash Converters for $120. It did include all of its cables and things like that and one controller, which is here. The only thing about this is that it is quite yellowed and dirty as well, as you can probably see all this kind of crap around here, and like the other side has got all black around the writing and it is a bit scratched. And the front of the console is relatively yellowed. Not sure if the light will pick it up, but you can definitely tell that it's not in its kind of original grey. If I sort of look, there's the probably, if you have a look here, that's probably the original grey, and then it sort of transitions to this yellowy, kind of disgusting yellowed colour from the sun. So what I'm planning to do in this video is tear this apart and retro bleach the outside shell, clean up the inside, the motherboard, things like that, and hopefully read cartridges every single time you pop one in, because at the moment it's a little bit temperamental, so it'll read and then it'll just not read and then it'll read, and then you got to take the cartridge out. Sometimes just give it a wipe with isopropyl alcohol and then it will read. But yeah, it doesn't fire up every single time. I know there is like a little method that where you can cut one of the pins on the motherboard, but ideally I don't want to mess around with the circuitry of it. I want to keep it original as well. I want to keep it as original as possible. So yeah, so what I'm planning to do is just to give it a good clean, a good scrub, and hopefully get it looking, you know, something close to when it came out of the factory. I'm not sure how successful I will be, but I have retro bleached other Nintendo things such as the GameCube front thing, the grey bit, the controller port, and it has come up a treat. So I'm hoping I'll have the same success with this as well as the controller. So yeah, let's just get the old screwdriver out and start cracking it open. So in order to crack this bad boy open, you just got to flip him around. And there are 6 screws that you got to undo. These are Phillips head screws, so it's relatively easy. Later on, Nintendo changed their screws to Gambit screws, but even then, you can still get the Gambit screwdrivers on eBay, things like that, Amazon, for relatively cheap, so you can still get inside of them. But this one, back in the day, they just had Phillips head. And I'll quickly speed through this so you don't get bored watching me undo screws. So I got it undone. Some of the screws were a bit seized, but with a bit of prying I did manage to get them all unscrewed. And now in order to get the cover off, you can actually remove this little bit here as well. And then just slowly lift it up. And flip him around and all your screws should hopefully come out. Like so. You can take those out, put them off somewhere safely. But there's the console itself and there's the cover. This is the thing I'm after. This is what I want to restore. As far as the inside goes, I'm not sure if I need to do anything except for maybe give the cartridge slot a good clean. It is a bit dusty in there. Not sure if I should actually take everything out. Yeah, maybe I'll take the whole thing apart and give it a good scrub and yeah, try to reassemble it back together again, because yeah, it is extremely dusty. Something that's, you know, 35 years old, I'm sure would accumulate a lot of dust over the years. So yeah, maybe I will actually pull this whole thing apart. Doesn't look too complicated. Sure, there are a lot of screws in here, but I think back in the day, electronics were quite easy to put together and assemble and reassemble and fix. Not like today where there's 5 million cables and chips and motherboards and all kinds of stuff. So no, I'm quite confident I can pull this whole thing apart and then reassemble it. So yeah, maybe that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, stick around and watch me tackle this bad boy. I think the good part about this is all the screws are exactly the same size. So that's awesome. Don't have to have different separate piles and worry about mixing them up. But yeah, like I said, I would love to get this restored perfectly, back to its former glory. So like I said, I do love collecting these, so it'd be great to have one of these looking nice and pretty on my shelf. Plus, for me, it also brings back a lot of memories. Because yeah, like I said, this was actually the first Nintendo console I ever owned. My brother and I used to spend hours and hours on it, playing Tetris, Mario. That's really where I fell in love with Mario. But then also things like, well, here it was called Pro Protector, but in America and things like that it was called Contra. But yeah, spent many hours playing that. I think that's a magnetic shield that should pop off. There it goes. Put that to the side. Then we have the cartridge slot. The pins look very clean and straight, so maybe I won't need to do too much to it. Maybe just give them a good clean with isopropyl alcohol, and hopefully they will read cartridges every single time rather than intermittently. So yeah, let's continue. Alright, so now I got the cartridge slot removed in order to pop him open. I think you just lift it up, pull it towards you, and there it goes, pops off nicely. There it is, excellent. Throw that to the clean bucket. Now what we're left is just with the, which looks very basic compared to the motherboards you get these days. It's basically just one single board. And we've got a couple more screws here and here to undo. So we'll get those done. Hopefully then the whole thing will come out where we can clean the outer shell. Ideally we're not going to try to clean anything that's got metal on it, because the last thing we want is it rusting and corroding. But all the plastic bits we can definitely give a good scrub in warm soapy water. And there's that, comes out. There's a couple cables here which we can undo very gently. Last thing we want is to break them, because I absolutely hate soldering. Pop that out. I should also pop out. Awesome. And the power supply. That's pretty much the whole. Let's pop that off. And there's the guts of a Nintendo NES. Awesome. And this one was actually made in 1987. Says right there, 1987. Nintendo. So at least we know that it's an original console and not some kind of fake reproduction, because God, that would be awful if that was a reproduction of some sort. But no, it does have all the official markings. So there's that. We'll pop that off to the side, and then all we got is the outer shell. There's just a few dead bugs in there. And a few little things we got to undo, like the controller ports and the power on and reset buttons, which you can take out. But also in there has the Nintendo logo. So that's excellent. So to undo these, there's two Phillips head screws this time, but these are silver, so definitely know that the silver ones go to there. We don't mix them up. Hopefully all those buttons will now come out. Beautiful. Wind them around. There's the power buttons, or power and reset buttons. Awesome. We'll give that a good clean with isopropyl as well. And the final thing are the controller ports, which I'm not quite sure how these are held in place. Idiot. Two Phillips head screws down the bottom here. And I'm assuming that whole thing will just pop out as well. God, I love how things were made back then. So much simpler than today, where you need 20-30 different screwdrivers and screwdriver pieces just to pull a simple thing apart. And yeah, like I said, that whole flap will just come off, which is a protective thing, and then these things will just somehow slide out. They certainly don't come out that way. Just maneuver them out. Just like so. I don't think it matters if they're controller port 1 or 2. I think it just matters of how you connect them to the motherboard. So make sure you just connect 1 and 2 to the motherboard. But yeah, here they are. Definitely give them a good clean scrub out as well. Awfully dusty in there. And yeah, there's the shell. So that's definitely going to get cleaned out. That's going to get cleaned. I'm going to definitely give this a thorough drying, because it does have a few metal bits here and there. I don't really want to be taking these springs out. But yeah, it does have a couple of metal bits here and there, so definitely dry it out thoroughly before reassembly, because like I said, yeah, last thing you want is that whole thing corroding on you. There's a little controller bit there, and then we have the actual part that I want to definitely clean up the best. Yeah, and hopefully get rid of that yellowing on there. That is my main objective of this whole process. Because yeah, like I said, I want to get it looking as new as possible. So there's that. And then we have the actual motherboard itself. Looks pretty clean. A little bit dusty. A little bit of corrosion around here and a bit of flux residue, which we can definitely clean up as well. So hopefully after everything is done, should hopefully read every single time. So essentially the next stage will just be me putting this in a bucket of warm soapy water and giving it a good scrub before retro brightening it. But I'm not going to show you the cleaning process because that's pretty boring, but I will actually return back with a process of how I retro brighten, even though I have done videos of it before. But yeah, I do want to go through it as thoroughly as possible with you guys, so you can have a understanding of how to do these things if you ever want to do it yourself. So yeah, stick around and I'll show you what it looks like after a thorough scrubbing. Sorry guys, so actually I forgot to undo the controller. But basically it's the same thing, it's just a couple of Phillips head screws down there. They are very tiny. I'm not sure if this screwdriver is going to work. Nope, probably not. So we just need something smaller. And there's also 6 screws down there as well for the controller. Can't forget about the controller. Can't have the console looking all beautiful and the controller looking like garbage. And that's the back cover. Pretty dirty. So it'll be good to clean it up. There's the actual controller. Just unwind that cable. And there's the little motherboard for the controller. Actually, it's quite clean in there. No corrosion, no things like that. So pretty happy with that. But definitely the buttons and the inside, let just focus in on there. But look at all that crap in there. Years and years of grime accumulated. That's all yellowed. D-pad will be definitely filthy. Definitely disgusting. So yeah, definitely give these a good scrubbing as well. So what I've got here is just some cling film on the bottom. Putting on some rubber gloves on now. Now we get our shell, basically there. And then we use hydrogen peroxide, ideally the professional stuff. 12% is the highest I could find at the headdresses, so I'll be using that. Hopefully there's still enough in there. If not, I actually do have a giant bottle as backup. Give that a good shake. And basically just smother it all over the console. This is great fun. And yeah, you don't actually have to worry about the writing fading. For some strange reason, the hydrogen peroxide only affects the light damaged stuff, but not any fonts or things like that that have been printed on the consoles. So ideally we want it looking like that on this side. If I can get it relatively close to that, I'll be very stoked. But yeah, essentially just to massage it everywhere, get it coated. Essentially where your hydrogen peroxide will be is what's going to get bleached, so you don't want to miss any spots, because then you'll just have yellow patches left over and then you'll probably have to just do it all over again. So apply it liberally. Well, I like to apply it liberally. Stuff's cheap anyway, so I can waste it. Once you've got that, you can take your gloves off. And then just wrap it tightly. Like so. And I might actually put another layer on top around here, just to stop any of that hydrogen peroxide leaking out everywhere. Awesome. Now I just stick it in a box and then put a light curing unit over the top of it. and hopefully in a couple of hours it should be good as new. Now that we've got the shell curing, we'll just give the circuitry a good clean with some isopropyl alcohol. So we've got that. In order to do that, just get some brushes. Any brushes will do, something obviously that you're not going to use afterwards. And there's some alcohol. I just like to pour a little bit in the cap. And just go over it thoroughly with the brushes. And the good part about the isopropyl alcohol is it evaporates really quickly, so you don't have to worry about any of the components being damaged. So here are the ports, looking beautiful and clean. A little bit wet, but that's not a problem. They'll soon dry out. Beautiful. That's pretty much all the components I wanted to get cleaned up. Did injure myself in the process, but that's always typical with me. Doing stuff, there's always an injury. I don't get anything done without bleeding. So yeah, once everything's clean and dry, it's time to reassemble it. So I finally got the top shell cleaned up and brightened. It's come up beautifully. That was the side that was really bad and yellowed. As you can see, there's no difference between the colours anymore. That was like yellow. And then we'll go into grey. But now it's all one colour. Almost looks like it's factory fresh. Probably slight discoloration, but absolutely can't tell just by looking at it. So I'm quite stoked with that. So now that that's all cleaned up, the motherboard and all the circuitry is all cleaned up as well. Now it's just time to reassemble everything. So I'll just do a quick time lapse of that. So yeah, let's get started. So there we have it. Nice and clean again. Love it. Super grey. Controller looks quite good as well. It's come up a treat. Now it's just a matter of testing it and seeing if it reads cartridges. So let's just do that real quick. So here it is connected up. It's on top of my Lego NES. I do have Mario in there. I've tested it prior to this and it is still slightly temperamental. So it takes a little bit to get the cartridge reading, so I have to jiggle it around a little bit. But after a while it does read it. As you can see beautifully, Super Mario Brothers comes straight up. So all in all, it does what it needs to do, and that's read games. It might take a little while to get them going, but once you do get them going, it's not an issue. So yeah, if you enjoy this video guys, please consider subscribing and I'll catch you around in the next one. Bye.